Hello, Clement29 here, and this is Table Talk. Now, I've gotten a few Mass Effect topics that weren't quite qualifying for topic videos, even though there's one of them that I really wanted to do. But this is what Table Talk is for. The first one I have is, who is your favorite Mass Effect character and why? Now, I already did an entire video on Ash, so I'll be a little fair. I'll pick someone else. And it's really hard, honestly. There's so many good characters in the Mass Effect series, and Mass Effect 2 has a lot of good characters. As much as I hate the game and the story itself, and I'll be fair, I like Mass Effect 2's cast. I don't think they're handled as well, but I like the characters, and I even like a lot of the individual the loyalty missions. And I mean, the most accurate way to describe it is that you have a bunch of really interesting characters and a bunch of really interesting individual stories just kind of tacked on to a generally really bad plot. But when you take into account these characters, I mean, even Jack. And Jack is a character I never liked. Now, granted, Mass Effect 3 Jack, of all things, is what actually made me start liking Jack more. Mainly because, well, she grew. She became a teacher at Grissom Academy. She started wearing clothes. You actually saw her care about when she curbed her swearing because she had students she was being a role model to, and wow, that was great. It's really hard to pick another character besides Ash. It's because Ash to me is just way up here in terms of characters. Mass Effect 1 has a lot of really well developed characters, mainly love interests, because they got a lot of attention. Rex really developed in Mass Effect 2, and it's one thing I really liked what they did with him. It makes perfect sense for his character. The only thing I wish is that we had this sort of prologue before the destruction of the Normandy, where we got to see these characters and set up these stories, but whatever. But even Rex, part of me doesn't really want to pick a favorite character from Mass Effect 2 since I didn't like playing that game and I don't like the story. But characters like Kasumi, even Thane has a few issues with how he's handled. I like Zaid. Zaid's pretty bland as an actual descriptive, if you read his description, but he's actually a really interesting character. Mordin, oh my gosh, how could I forget about Mordin? Mordin is fantastic. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I was talking to him and I just did the I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I did that song over and over. It's just so entertaining. Mordin as a character is probably one of the deepest, most complex characters, and if I had to pick one thing from Mass Effect 2 that I absolutely, hands down, loved, it's Mordin. You know what? I'm gonna go with Mordin. Mordin in Mass Effect 2. Really, the only downside to his character is the fact that when you talk to him, when you talk to him about the genophage, it's basically yeah, slaughter the Krogans, or you're a genocidal maniac, and it's it's part of the binary of Mass Effect 2. But you learn about the genophage, and you learn about how the Solarians dealt with the Krogans, and you learn all this stuff about about how he did the modifications to the genophage, and how he's grown. He has this internal conflict in him of, was this the right thing to do? Or, I'm justified. He can logically back up every decision he made with the genophage, but morally, he has this struggle of, I can say, yes, this makes sense, but is this really the right thing? And that's something that carries over into Mass Effect 3, and, he wants to cure the genophage. And when you talk to his character, and honestly, I think if there's anything that was remained out of the original script for Mass Effect 2, because I'm sure that Drew Harpersham had a plan for Mass Effect 2 until Mac Walters took over, but I think Mordin was definitely there, because, and Legion too, there's so many good characters, because one of the things that Mass Effect 2 does well is that it takes preconceived notions that you had for Mass Effect 1 and flips them on their heads. You have the whole thing about the genophage and, you hear from Rex about how the genophage is just so freaking awful and how basically depressed he is because of it. But when you talk to Morden, he's just like, I can defend myself on this. Like, I have a reason for doing this. So you have it. It's one of those things that it's an ethical debate, but neither side is really inherently wrong. The Krogan were out of control after the Rachni Wars, so naturally the genophage is actually something that needed to happen. The Krogan were, growing and like they were populating at a completely absurd rate. They could have overtaken the galaxy had the genophage not happened, but the genophage has basically driven the Krogan to near extinction, and the only reason they're still around is because they live for 1,000 years. Well, they're not killing each other, that is. So it's interesting to see that, and that's one of the reasons why Morden is one of my favorite characters. And I know this is just asking about one character, but I have to talk about Legion too. Legion is also a fantastic character, just slightly below Morden for me. I like the description that Smudboy called him as the Commander Sheppard cosplayer. Now, one of the things about Mass Effect, this is actually something that perfectly fits in with something established in Mass Effect 1. If you talk to Tali, and she talks to you about the Morning War and basically the conflict between the Quarians and the Geth, she talks about how the Quarians attacked first. And you can actually call her out and say, well, maybe the Quarians caused all of it. And she's like, no, the Geth were going to attack anyway. And it really basically leaves it, despite, Tali's insistence, it leaves it vague to what really happened. And when you meet Legion, you actually do, and you don't sell him, but and you talk to him and you find out that the Geth, they never wanted to fight. They just wanted to help the Quarians. The Morning War was entirely retaliatory. It was entirely done in retaliation. They didn't actually want to fight. But the Quarians were trying to wipe them out. And it's like, okay, we'll fight back. And they drove the Quarians away. And then they just kind of stopped. And it's like, all right. We're just waiting for you guys to come back. And they've been running around for 300 years on these ships, basically, suffering all this time. And then their planet's been fine. And, that's one of the great things about Legion as a character, is that he shows us, and he basically is like, hey, the Geth you were fighting with Saren, that's like 10% of the Geth population, or if even that, it was like maybe, it was just a small part of it, like 5% of what you were fighting was really just a splinter group of the actual Geth consensus. And you learn about the Geth, and, it's such a great expansion of lore. I just wish that happened with the rest of Mass Effect 2's writing. But the thing with Legion, though, is that, he's such an interesting character in and of himself that it's I say this a lot, but one of the things that I really like is when you have an AI character that is genderless. That doesn't actually emulate any kind of gender. Like, even, Edie is basically female, with Tricia Helfer's voice. But, Legion is very much falls into the genderless category. And it's kind of surprising, but when it comes to science fiction, we oftentimes don't really see a true, gender-neutral, AI. Because technically, they have no gender. They're robots. They're computers. They don't have any gender. But oftentimes, when writing, and I'm not saying this is inherently a bad thing, I mean, I've done it before in my own stories. You have a character that is an AI, but is pretty much male or female. And I'm not saying either way is better or worse, because honestly, each one comes with its own stories, but oftentimes you don't particularly see these types of completely genderless robots, and Legion is very much that. He's honestly not even a single being. He's like over 1,000 programs, Geth programs, running on a single platform, and the one you're talking to is just, as he calls them, the platform. And it's really interesting the way they go about that, and he's just such a fascinating character. His obsession with Commander Sheppard and his fixation on him is so interesting, because even Legion can't explain it. When you ask him why he's basically repaired himself by using Sheppard's N7 armor, he's just like, well, because it was there. But why did you use that armor? because it was there, and it's like, and it's so interesting because there's these glints of this more, you know, human or more, to use the terms in Mass Effect, more organic, you know, thought processes in him and sentimentality that, you know, you wouldn't actually particularly expect from a Geth. And it's just so interesting. I could go on and on about each of the characters, but yeah, I can actually say Legion and Mordin are two of my favorite characters, and probably the best part, two of the best things about Mass Effect 2. I mean, there's other great characters. Kasumi is great. Zaid. Thane, I had an issue with the fact that you couldn't call him out on him being a hypocrite. Oh, I'm religious. I mean, I basically kill for a living, but, you know, it's okay as long as I pray for forgiveness after I kill. And it's like, especially since my Sheppard was very religious, he didn't particularly care for that. But the game doesn't let you do that. You know, there's a lot of stuff in Mass Effect 2. And I think the one issue with Mass Effect 2 is the writing doesn't let you handle these characters as well. Because especially with Kasumi's a loyalty mission, when you have Keiji's gray box, and it basically the logical choice is to destroy it, and it's basically the one that makes the most sense. But you know, the game kind of leads you to letting her keep it. And hell, I found out that one of the original plans in Mass Effect 3 that got thankfully cut is that if you didn't save Keiji's gray box, Kasumi would die in Mass Effect 3. And even in the synthetic ending, it shows her with a hologram of Keiji, and it's just like, you're trying to tell me that this was the good ending, not letting her move on. I digress. That happens a lot with these characters. There's some great stuff, but they don't let you handle it so well. I think I talked enough about this, so I'll move on to the next one. What is your favorite and least favorite aspects in Mass Effect? Big topic. Very vague. But I will, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the last topic was submitted by Ancient89, and this one is submitted by a Tumblr Anon. Anyway, I'll be brief with this so that I can get on to the last topic, which I really want to talk about. My favorite thing about Mass Effect is the universe that was created. Drew Karpyshyn really did a good job when it came to the Mass Effect universe and the characters and the world. And then even Mass Effect 2, as bad as that was, couldn't completely ruin the universe. It took Mass Effect 3 to do that. But the world itself is interesting. I like the dialogue choices. I like the way the dialogue wheel. I thought that was really, you know, a neat little way, and it's a visually different from a lot of other things, because a lot of times they'll just be little games that are action RPGs that have, dialogue system will just have a list right here. So I like that, and I did like the Paragon Renegade system. Mass Effect 1 handled it the best, and unfortunately as time went on, it basically devolved into one thing that the Paragon and Renegade system was trying to avoid, which is one of my least favorite aspects of the series. Because Paragon was supposed to represent, you know, basically lawful good. You know, the guy who wants to go and help everyone and be nice and work with everyone. But there were times when a Paragon would basically let something slide that shouldn't slide. Renegade is basically the do it all at all costs kind of person. Maybe a little bit racist when it comes to other species. Maybe a little too pro-human. But generally, he's not evil all the time. He's just generally more ruthless. Unfortunately, this turned into the traditional good-evil dichotomy, especially in Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 2 it also did that. A lot of people didn't talk about that. And I did like how, you know, you basically could, but unfortunately, when it comes to Mass Effect 1, you're talking, you know, I generally Paragoned a lot of stuff, but occasionally I did stuff that was Renegade when I felt Paragon wasn't as good. One of the issues, though, is that if you don't have a high enough gauge on either one, you can't, you know, fulfill certain requirements for certain speech checks, which I found really kind of stupid. And it's just, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to have, oh, well, you know, you can't say this slightly mean comment because your Renegade bar isn't high enough. I need to achieve a certain amount of Renegade-ness in order to make a slightly mean comment. or a sarcastic comment. So you know, like, or hey, I'm not Paragon enough, so I can't pass this check. And it's one of those ridiculous checks that doesn't really make as much sense. I mean, it's not like a game like Fallout that will have, you know, different stats, you know, that you can use to pass certain speech checks depending on a different stat that you have. This one is basically just all Paragon Renegade because there aren't really other stats that involve, you know, speaking. A lot of it's all combat. But yeah, I can handle it. Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, and 3. It's just, yeah. I have to say one of my least favorite aspects is something that surprised me when I played Mass Effect 2, are the interrupt system. And I don't want to go into full detail because I could rant on an hour about how much I hate the interrupt system. It's poorly designed, it's poorly handled, and it's so freaking ambiguous about what you're going to do. You could do almost anything, especially if it's a renegade interrupt. It could be something of, hey, shut up, to, I'm going to brutally murder you. And it's like, what? My least favorite aspect is basically the direction the story took after Mass Effect 1. Even though, I mean, I heard that the Cerberus story was actually something that Drew Karpyshyn planned to happen, and originally Sheppard was going to die at the end of Mass Effect 1 and then be resurrected in the beginning of Mass Effect 2 as Cerberus, but they thought that that ending in Mass Effect 1 wouldn't happen, or would be pretty depressing. So they had Sheppard live, and then they killed Sheppard off at the beginning of the second game, like, less than 10 minutes into it. Like, really? But it's just the story overall was just, and one of the big problems in Mass Effect 2 is the plot basically meanders and means almost nothing in the end. Because, you know, basically, you would expect Mass Effect 1 to be like, okay, we discover the Reaper threat. Mass Effect 2 would be finding a way to stop the Reaper threat. Mass Effect 3 is the Reapers are here, we need to stop them. You'd think that would be the general progression, but it's like, discover the Reaper threat, stop the Collectors, which all in all doesn't really mean much. You stop them from building the baby Reaper. Yeah, I don't really want to get into that. That one's stupid. But yeah, overall, like, and honestly, when it comes to the gameplay, actually, Mass Effect 1 I liked, even though it had a few issues. It was a little clunky. I mean, BioWare doesn't make shooters, so that's to be expected. Mass Effect 2 is just like awful. Just Gears of War clone. It's like, and in Mass Effect 1, I really, really liked all the stats that you got, and you got to build up each stat as you were playing, and you know, you got to boost, you know, health, get to boost your efficiency with certain types of weapons. Mass Effect 2 is just like, gone! You get like 3 levels on each, and it's like, and you only have like 3 or 4 things, including your special powers. Oh, but I could go on about that crap in Mass Effect 2 all day. I think I'll end this topic right here because after Mass Effect 1, the series just, ugh. Alright, now this topic was submitted by YouTube user The King of Hearts. And this is the one that I really wanted to talk about. Could you do a talk about the Mass Effect 3 Sheppard, the Mass Effect 3 Sheppard Takes a Forced Vacation followed by Shenanigans DLC arc? Your thoughts on that as a whole, beginning to end. Did you think it worked out? Do you think it worked out well? Love it or hate it? Was the humor on point or was it too silly? Did the characters retain their personality in their cameos, etc.? Now, the one reason that I'm not doing an actual topic video on this is because I never played Mass Effect 3. In fact, I mean, like, I would have gotten the Mass Effect 3 for the Wii U, but you know, just part of me just didn't even want to play the game. A lot of people, I mean, I watched a full playthrough of this, of the Citadel DLC, and a lot of people might be surprised. I actually really like it. It's not perfect. I don't want anyone to think I'm saying that. It's not perfect. It has a number of issues, and since it's in Mass Effect 3, we get unfortunate crap like Ashley's redesign. But overall, I love the plot of this. Now, I'll put a spoiler warning on this. Like back off if you, like, don't listen to this topic if you don't want spoilers, because I will spoil it. I honestly think there's stuff that's worth not spoiling. So, alright, if you're still here, that means you're accepting spoilers. So, the plot of this is basically that there's a clone of Sheppard that was made by Cerberus so that if, actual Sheppard needed any body parts, they could just harvest it from the clone. If you've ever seen The Island by Michael Bay, good movie actually. I really enjoyed it. It's basically that same premise. They have clones of people, and if they ever need if they need a liver transplant or a heart transplant, they'd have an absolute perfect match. But this clone basically woke up and was really pissed off that they were basically considered expendable. So they worked with some rogue Cerberus elements to basically take Sheppard's place. This is such a fascinating story. It's the only thing in Mass Effect 3 that I really like. I mean, it's such an interesting idea. You have Sheppard going up against someone who could match him or her in any kind of way. But they're evil. They're hands down evil. Even if you're going up against Renegade, they're worse than them. I will be honest, the main reason I didn't get Mass Effect 3 in the Wii U is because it doesn't have the Citadel DLC. I would have bought the Wii U version of Mass Effect 3. I would have gotten the Citadel DLC, and I would have played up to that, to when it opened up, done that, and then quit. I love the idea of the Citadel DLC. The problem is that it doesn't fit into the story. I mean, one thing that really gets me is that each of the Mass Effect 2 and 3 don't have a well-structured villain that's an intermediate between the Reapers. At least in terms of story or narrative. Mass Effect 1 had Saren. Mass Effect 2 kind of missed out on that. It had the Collector General, but you don't really see much about him. And I knew all about the Collector General long before I actually played the game, so I wasn't confused on any of that. On his relationship with Harbinger and being a puppet. But I know a lot of people were the first time they played it, and that wasn't clear. And Mass Effect 3 is Mass Effect 3 doesn't have any actual villain outside of... The Reapers are attacking outside of, people being douchebags. And this would have been a fantastic starter villain for Mass Effect 3. You're trying to gather people together for the incoming Reapers, and then... Oh no, but this evil Shep shows up, and now we have to stop them before we can actually get people together. And... that is such an interesting idea, but they don't do it. It's nothing but a side story. He gets this mercenary group, works with some rogue Cerberus people, and he was going to take over the Normandy and take your place. Or he or she. I played male Shep. And that's so interesting. That's literally I honestly think, outside of basic stuff like the Quarian, Geth conflict, I think this is the most interesting storyline Mass Effect 3 has. And then they waste it. No matter what, the Shep clone dies. And, it really pisses me off. This is one of those things where, no matter what choice you make, it's always going to end up in the exact same outcome, outside of a bit of slight differences in the details. Eventually it has a very, The Mummy Returns kind of ending, where you have Shep and Clone Shep falling off the edge of the back of the Normandy as it's flying. I think they're the Citadel and stuff. And Shep's team comes in to pick him up and help him out. And then, no one comes and helps Clone Shep. And you can choose to help Clone Shep or kick them out the back of the Normandy. But no matter what you do, they still die. Clone Shep dies. No matter if you help him. If you help him out, he'll just be like, "It's not worth living." Oh! And splats against the side of a building. And if another one is basically just kick him in the face, or it's very much a "Long live the king." Ah! And, ultimately it makes no difference. Which is so sad. the story, going from beginning to end, when I was first watching it, I wasn't really impressed. Like, when I was first starting it, I didn't expect to like it. I mean, honestly, it took me a while to even want to watch it because I heard about it. I heard the Shep takes a vacation during the Reaper invasion. I'm just like... Ugh. But I decided to check it out anyway. And I made sure to find a male Shep one with an actually romance. Because all the ones I found were like Miranda romances, and I wanted a one with an Ash romance. I wanted to simulate what it would be like to play without actually playing it. And, you know, the story is kind of interesting anyway, because it actually has a nice little flow to it. You know, you get you work with these mercenaries attack, and then you have to deal with them, and then you follow the clues to. You get work together with this one chick who's in the Alliance, and you work together. Ultimately, she betrays you because she found out she was ex-Cerberus, and she's working with Clone Shep, and Clone Shep tries to take over the Normandy, and you have to stop him before, you know, he basically just totally takes your place. And, you know, that's such an interesting plot. And honestly, I really like it, outside of the hiccups in the characters. One of my favorite things is that there's this one part where basically all the companions you had all come back, and they're all like on top of like this balcony. They're all just like gunning out like ah, and it's like this is fan service, plain and simple. And I'm not gonna lie, it's good fan service. This is the kind of stuff we like. When I complained that Ash didn't get a DLC, this is the closest thing Ash gets. Ash will help you out, especially if you're romanced her. I don't know the details of that since I haven't played it, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this as a table talk video rather than a topic video. But we get Ash in it, and I have to admit, when it comes to the cameos, the characters are the most in character they are in Mass Effect 3. It's not saying much most of the time, but it's nice. Ash has, despite the fact that Ash comes off as a bit of a sleaze, which is annoying, you know, she does have a bit of her, you know, old sass in her that she had from Mass Effect 1 and 2. Less so 2, since she only had like 5 minutes of screen time. But, I mean, I actually kind of liked them. Like, wow. When I was watching, I'm like, that was a kind of in character moment for Ash. So, that was good. Kasumi pops up for like, I think Kasumi pops up for like 5 seconds. And she's about to do a heist, though I don't know why she's going into the middle talking about it in the open. She's supposed to be the best thief ever, so you think she would make that mistake. But she pops up and you meet her, and, you know, I like this fan service. I really do. Honestly, like, especially with all the grimness in Mass Effect 3. This is one of the problems with the series, is that after Mass Effect 1, it basically lost any real hope, and it's just like, grim, dark, grim, dark, grim, dark. It's like, this is very much a fun romp, stop the bad guy kind of thing. It reminded me of Mass Effect 1, fighting Saren. And it's, who would have thought that a Mass Effect 3 DLC would have done this? Hell, even the Omega DLC, which gave us our first female Turian, wasn't all that good. But this, why is this the one thing that I actually think is good? One of the things I also, DLC, did you think it worked out well? Yeah, honestly, I did think it worked out well. As well as it could have in Mass Effect 3. If this was done with the full team behind Mass Effect 1, with the production value of Mass Effect 2, this would have been the best DLC ever. It really would have. So, but even with the setbacks of being in Mass Effect 3, it still did really well. The humor, I actually like that it had humor. I mean, even Mass Effect 2 had humor. And honestly, some of the jokes in Mass Effect 2 are really good. I am a biotic god. Is that Nif2 Cal, I think? Biotic god. You know, and there were some funny moments intertwined with some of the moments that were honestly really, really cruel from Sheppard. But Mass Effect 3 basically dropped the humor, and it was just like, hey, did you have any happiness? Ha, not anymore. So this was, it's jarring, but it's good. And honestly, having characters joke, if this wasn't going on during the Reapers invading, If this happened during like the 6 months that they were waiting for the Reapers to come in, this would be this would perfectly fit in the story. It would be good. It would really fit in. But the only issue really is in terms of narrative is that it comes in a time when there shouldn't be any distractions. We need to stop the Reapers. But, you know, I don't like the main plot of Mass Effect 3, so, excuse me, I'll take this. I'll take it and I'll run with it. I mean, some parts of it were a little too silly, but I'll take a little too silly rather than a little too grimdark. Ultimately, this DLC has one of the most interesting things about it is that it actually lets all the companions and characters interact. And this, gosh darn it, is what Mass Effect 2 and 3 missed. Having them all interact with each other. And I know I'm not the only person to complain about this. And one thing I really wish is, like, you have this whole cast of characters, especially in Mass Effect 2, you have like 12 squad mates. And none of them really interact with each other. You don't see Zaid talking to Grunt about battles. You don't see Grunt wanting to learn from Zaid. You don't see I mean, you get a little bit in Mass Effect 3, but you don't really get much. Not really of any value. But the Citadel DLC, the entire ending of it is at Sheppard's apartment, and everyone's there just chilling out with each other. And it's so great. I mean, you get to see little bits, especially Kasumi's crush on Jacob. You get to see bits of that. You get to see, you get to, I mean, even as stupid as a character Vega is, seeing him do a push-up contest against Jacob that's so funny, and I like that. And like, especially when you find out that he's struggling with it. You see big Beefcake Vega struggling with push-ups, and you find out that Kasumi's been sitting on him invisible the whole time. And it's like, these fun moments are great. You see Joker and Trainer bickering with each other, like, about Edie. Like, I never really liked Trainer. I kind of wanted to see her interact more with Joker, and holy crap, that's exactly what we get. They're bickering over Edie, like, who likes Edie more? And it's like, good gosh, you two, you're children. And you see all these characters interact with each other, and there's sometimes where you see like a group of like 3 or so companion characters are just sitting down, and you can talk to them, and you can just listen in on their conversations. And this is what Mass Effect 2 and 3 were missing. I just wish that we got this as a core element of the story rather than just being in a DLC. And this, as good as I like the DLC, it still suffers from the fact that it's basically super disconnected. And I mean, seriously, why is Sheppard taking a vacation? Why does Anderson be like, hey, Sheppard, the Reapers are invading, but here's an apartment on the Citadel? It doesn't make any sense. But you know what? Mass Effect 3 doesn't make any sense. So I'll take the stuff that doesn't make sense, but it's fun. I'll take that. And surprisingly, this is the most accurate the characters are in Mass Effect 3. It really is. I mean, even Ash, as badly as Ash got screwed up in Mass Effect 3, especially her look, which is unfortunately not something we can change unless you straight up mod the game. It's satisfying. And that's one of the things that Mass Effect 2 and 3 weren't. They weren't satisfying. Some of the DLCs were satisfying, like, I have to say, the Overlord DLC, that was satisfying. Pretty much the only real satisfying thing in Mass Effect 2. But, you know, this is really the only satisfying thing in Mass Effect 3. I mean, it's basically, Mass Effect 3 is an exercise in darkness and basically killing off a lot of characters you love. Because, hey, did you want to save Mordin? Too bad. You either kill him or let him die. Unfortunately, if I remember correctly, I don't believe Mordin shows up in this DLC, specifically because I don't know if you have to have done the Tachanka mission before, but it's really disappointing. Honestly, just let us have all the characters. I think Legion, I don't know if Legion shows up either, because I know he dies during the Rannoch mission, which is disappointing. They don't even let you help with that, because hey, you know, why not just copy his program to another platform and let the other program just like be absorbed? But you know what, whatever. The Citadel DLC for Mass Effect 3 is arguably the only thing worthwhile about the game. It really is, and that's so surprising. It's a DLC that I thought was stupid when I first heard about it. It ends up being the only thing that I like. And I'm done. I've probably been going on for this for a while. Honestly, I should have broken this up into multiple ones, but you know what? There's a lot to talk about, and I honestly really enjoy talking about Mass Effect. I kind of wish people would send me more Mass Effect topics, because there's a lot I really want to talk about. I think that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully get around to doing another Table Talk video pretty soon.